that truth can take different forms. Here's a look at the McFarlane toys: DC Multiverse, Dark Knight's Death Metal, Wonder Woman. Following the universe-shattering events of Dark Knight's Metal, the Earth is enveloped by the dark multiverse and has transformed into a hellish landscape, twisted beyond recognition. Now the Batman Who Laughs rules the planet, and in an attempt to defeat him, Wonder Woman uses her invisible jet, the lasso of truth, and to forge a new weapon, the chainsaw of truth, to cut down the evil that stands in her way. Teaming up with Batman, Superman, and the other DC superheroes, Wonder Woman is on a mission to save the DC multiverse. Before we get this review underway, went for a dramatic pause there, the first thing we're going to want to do is figure out how tall the Dark Knight's Death Metal Wonder Woman is, and in order to do that, I'm going to take the tape measure right to the very top of her head. A little brief pause of silence again. According to the readouts, Wonder Woman from Dark Knight's Death Metal stands 12.1 inches in height. We can switch that over to centimeters, and the figure is about 31 centimeters, 30.9 to be exact. Wonder Woman marks the fourth and final figure from the Dark Father wave. So, because of that, not only are we going to look at the accessories, but we're also going to look at the final build-a-figure pieces, which are the cape and the head for Dark Father. And then from there, we'll have a look at Dark Father, I think in probably a separate review. Let's not get ahead of ourselves before we look at the accessories, before we look at Dark Father's pieces. Let's bring in a couple of figures for some size comparisons. Seeing that so much of this story centers around the Batman Who Laughs, it probably makes some sense to bring him in. I guess, for a size, if you compare Bruce Wayne to Diana, I feel like this is properly scaled, but I still feel like the Batman Who Laughs as a figure should have been just a little bit taller than what he is. A little bit smaller than that, we can also bring in Robin King. A personal favorite of mine, actually, from this. I think Robin King and Wonder Woman are my two favorite figures from the four figures that we've got. We can also bring in Dark Knight's Death Metal Batman, which really, again, wasn't a bad figure. And I know I really did flack all over this figure for a lot of the problems, and it wasn't really so much for him. It's just the fact that, yeah, we already got that figure. Did we really need to get an exact carbon copy of him again? Sorry for the flacking there, Batman. We can also bring in the recently looked at Superman, which again, like when I'm seeing it really with the rest of these figures, Superman sort of comes up fourth in my, four figures in this wave. It wasn't a bad figure, but I mean, again, when you compare it with how good the other figures were from this particular wave, I feel like Superman sort of then rounds out the last of the figures in this set. Stand, trading card, Dark Father pieces, chainsaw. That's going to be the order that we're going to be looking at those. So sticking with what I just said, starting first, she comes included with the same display stand. Try to think of exciting things I can always use to describe these stands, but at the end of the day, they're just basically black stands with the DC logo and the peg at the top. Simple, yet effective. I still like the fact that they include stands with all these figures. Moving along, she also comes included with a trading card. And if you think that we're going to be seeing artwork on these trading cards now again, no. Still the case, it seems that they're using figure photography. It looks a little bit better with Wonder Woman just because she's got like the lightning bolts and stuff going on in the background, but still, I don't know. I just kind of like the artwork, and I'm really curious. I'd love to ask Todd McFarlane why he chose to not have the artwork shown on these trading cards, because that was one of the best aspects of these cards. Sure, yeah, there were stats on the back. You were able to know that her real name is Diana Prince. You were able to know that her height was 6 feet, and you were able to know that she was 165 pounds. But it also would have been really nice just to put artwork back onto these and not use figure photography. Moving that also to the side. She does also come included with the cape and the head for Dark Father, which I guess for this probably would make some sense to bring in where we've left off on Dark Father. As you've seen between now the reviews, I was able to finally get the arms back in place. I had some real struggle. The arms that came included with Superman were really difficult to plug into the torso. I finally did it. Whoosh. Anyways, let's go ahead and have a look at the things that she comes included with. She gets herself a cape. It's a really interesting looking textured cape. See, when you see it up close and personal like this. I like that they did add a little bit of texturing to it, so it's not simply just a smooth cape. If you flip it around to the back, this is going to, of course, fit around the neck, and then there's a little plug point that's going to go into the back of the torso. She also comes included with a head. I don't think the head is something that you have to add in a particular order, although it probably makes more sense to have it on as the last piece, so you're not having to, fight the cape over top of the head. So we're going to go ahead and grab Darkfather from where we've left off. Let's flip the figure around and drape the cape. Oh, I rhymed there. Drape the cape, fit it around to the back. And I don't know how well this peg is going to work, because obviously this is the first time I'm doing this. Let's snap this. I don't know if snapping would be the best word to use to describe it. It stays in there well enough. I think if you really pull on it, you're probably free from that peg. And there's a secondary part here where that tabs into the front. See right there? Right into there. Fit that down into place. That's a pretty secure looking cape when it's all said and done. And then we can go ahead and take the head sculpt, which I know up to this point I have yet to really show you guys. Let's just get that onto the ball peg. There we go. And there you have, ladies and gentlemen, Darkfather. The only thing I would say in retrospect, even though we've just finished doing this, is that the front of the cape doesn't seem to plug in well enough. It seems like it just keeps freeing itself from that. Yeah, see right there. I'm going to keep trying. Hopefully perseverance is the key to get that successfully plugged in place. If not, I'm going to have to go the route of glue. I just don't want to have to use glue. There you go. There's Darkfather. He doesn't come with any accessories other than just the things that you're looking at right now, and a full review of him will be coming up shortly. Move that off to the side. The last thing I did promise when I was listing off, checking off the things we were going to cover off in this review, was the chainsaw. And I got to say, that is, if there's any way to bring truth to the table, it's with a chainsaw. Really like the way that looks. Now, she doesn't seem to come with a lasso, which is all really surprising, because usually when you get a Wonder Woman figure, you would expect, if anything, a lasso of truth would be included. But I guess if you're going to have a chainsaw of truth, again, it's a lot more of an effective means of getting the truth out of somebody if you're literally just threatening to cut them in half. Sad to report, unfortunately, that the chainsaw was arriving a little on the warp side. Taking this out from its plastic tray, I did notice, yeah, the chainsaw's a little on the warp side. Going to see if I can heat that up, submerge it in hot water if necessary. See if I can bend that back into place. Why am I looking at this and I'm thinking it's something that I could see Kratos having? Kratos with the chainsaw of truth. Again, I don't know if you'd really wait to hear what truth the person has to say before you would just slice them up into bits, but that seems like something that I think Kratos would be wielding in the game. It's got some really nice gold in there. You can see like the teeth are a nice bright blue color, the same blue that's on the top of it. I would love to see if McFarlane could release this as a one-to-one. Not obviously working, that would be a little bit more expensive, but a one-to-one release of the Chainsaw of Truth, yes, yes, yes. Go ahead and put that into her hand. She only has one hand to really do the job. The other hand is actually a closed fist, and she doesn't come with any other hands. So that you really have a very limited choice to choose from. Go ahead and just fit that into her hand. Like that. And she's got her Chainsaw of Truth. Boy, does that ever look nice. At the beginning of this review, I had bent the arm. She has double hinge on the arms, and I probably will end up displaying her like this on the shelf. Very, very cool. There's also a handle on the top, which I almost would have suspected that she could have then held it like this. But because she only has a closed fist in her arsenal, there is no other way to actually attach to the top of this. So if that was the plan to have in place, unfortunately, she just doesn't have another hand deliverable to in order to do that. So let's go ahead and just take this out of her hand and put that to the side. Getting now a closer look at Wonder Woman. This could be my favorite Wonder Woman that McFarlane Toys has released so far. And I guess if you count the one that came with the Dr. Fate helmet, which we still actually have to look at on this channel, I guess there would have been a total of 4 Wonder Woman. The one with the mohawk, the same figure with the Dr. Fate helmet, this one, of course, and then the Gal Gadot Wonder Woman from the movies. This is easily, though, my favorite, I think, of the batch. Starting first, let's have a look at the head sculpt. See up close and personal there. I thought perhaps maybe that the skin tone that they went with was a little too pale, but you know, it seems to work quite well, especially when you got it with the rest of the coloring of the armor. The armor is really quite subtle, really. The armor piece that's obviously in the bodice section of her torso, the skirting as well, are all very muted colors. They're not bright and vibrant. If they went the route of using bright colors, I think the paler skin would have been a bigger problem to me. But I like it. I like the fact that they did use the lighter skin. Of course, you can also see she's got black lipstick, black eyeliner, it seems, around her eyes. Maybe too much eyeliner, but you can still see her eyes, so it's not the case where they're lost at all. And I do like the panel lining that they used for the eyebrows as well. This is a really nice touch. You'll see that there's sculpting hair. Obviously there is. I like that the ends of it have been dipped in blue. It transitions well enough that it's not just a stark line across where it's blue for one part, stops, and then it just continues on with a more jet black color. Actually, it blends in rather nicely, and it doesn't stop in all the same places. It's a little higher here on one side, a little higher on the end there, and it's a little lower in the middle. I think the blue works really well with Wonder Woman. Of course, she's also got her headdress there as well, which isn't removable. It's a softer plastic, and it does work really, really well with the character. Reminds me a bit like Lady Loki. Really like the gold. The gold is much more subtle, it seems, when it gets down to the lower armor pieces. The top of her bodice, for example. You can see there's the Wonder Woman logo, nice rivet points there as well. Of course, if you look at her arms, this is neat. You can see on the side she's got skulls that have been strapped, and she's using them as shoulder plates or shoulder armor pieces. That's a nice touch as well. Could there have been, yes, an opportunity made by their team to probably add like a darker wash to this? Because, you know, that's the one thing that seems to stumble this line a little bit, is the fact that as good as the paint may be on these figures, sometimes they do really lack in the paint department when it comes to contrasting lighter, darker colors. I don't feel necessarily that she needed it. Yes, there's always an opportunity where you could have enhanced this sculpt with a darker washing of black paint, just enough just to kind of fill in those areas and make them a little more standout-ish. But, you know, I think it works well for Wonder Woman because the colors, because the sculpt works so well on the character. I really don't think like a dark wash is necessary. It would have certainly enhanced the figure, but I'm not feeling like it's lacking it as much as maybe when we looked at the Superman, for example. Could there have been an opportunity to add a contrast of black color to the gauntlets? Yeah, absolutely. But I don't feel like while looking at it, I feel like the figure's lacking it too much. Probably could be the fact that there's so much color happening here with the red and the blue. It goes to the route of a very Gal Gadot style of costuming, complete with the skirting down below. You can see there's the Wonder Woman logo forming off into the skirting on the front of the figure. She's got these higher colors of blue, banded at the top there with some really nice sculpted gold. And you want to talk sculpting. Were we talking about sculpting? Yes, we should. Look at the sculpting that they've done on these boots. Spin it around so you can see it from all sides. Probably would help if I move my hand out of the way. She's also got like these lifts in her boots, these platform boots, which I guess would be a little more difficult. Not that I'd be running around in the battlefield myself wearing them. I would think they'd be a little bit more difficult to run when you've got high heels or high lifted boots like this, but that's Wonder Woman. She can pull it off, I guess. Really like what they've done here with the sculpting. Again, naysayers could easily just say, really could have used a darker wash on top of it just to bring some of that out. You probably could have added little highlights in there as well. But the sculpt left to itself, I actually think works really well on the figure. And of course, the last thing we'll have a look at is her cape. For that, we'll spin the figure around. In the way similar that it described Darkfather's cape, although the texturing is a little bit different here, you got kind of almost a basket weaving of texturing that they've added to the back of the cape. I like also that the cape isn't straight. There's some points to the end of it as well. And it's a softer plastic too, so it's got a little bit of give to it. You can see there on the back, painted still nicely. I don't think it lacks anything that the front ends. I mean, you could say maybe the gold. I haven't not yet really looked at the back of Wonder Woman's behind in the comics. I don't know if she's supposed to have a little bit of gold there on the trim. They've sort of just left it to the blue plastic, but if any argument could be made, you could really say that the cape's covering over anyways, so you really wouldn't be able to see it. Looking at the figure's posability, this is where the figure comes up short. She has articulation where you would expect in things like her arms, for example, but she's really limited when it comes to her head, and especially limited when we get to the torso. Let's start first with the head and work our way down. Because she has so much hair, a lot of it, and it's all hard plastic. It really limits what you can do with the figure. You'll be fighting and struggling to get the head to move any bit past the point of having it just looking straight forward. In a case like this, I would sacrifice posability in favor of sculpt, because if we had the hair higher so you could actually get the head to move, then the hair wouldn't look as good as it does now. So in this case, even though, yeah, you do lose a lot in what you can actually do with her head sculpt, I think it looks a lot nicer just having the sculpted hair. And I'm not going to really pose her any bit more than what I'm just doing right now. Yeah, it would have been nice to be able to move her head to the side, and you can do it, but you're just really going to fight it along the way. And I really think with all the struggle that you're going to be doing to force against that peg, you really don't want that peg to break. And that may just ultimately happen. But again, like, you can't, that's as far as I'm going to go. That's as far as I really want to risk it, at least. The other thing that's limited on the figure is her torso. This, you can probably see here, is a soft plastic. It seems like they probably have a joint pegged inside the body of the figure, but you can't move it. You can't twist it. Short of the fact that it just feels different than the rest of the figure's body, I almost feel like they could have just pulled off the same look by having this all molded of the same piece. Instead of actually making this soft plastic, it almost leads you to believe that you'd be able to do something with the figure's articulation, and you really can't. You can move it, sure, you can bend it, but it doesn't stay in any of those places. Again, I probably would have just maybe put the lower, I guess that what they wanted to do is they wanted to use probably an existing Wonder Woman body and then just sculpt this as the piece that's going to go over top of it to differentiate this from the ones before. But certainly if you want to expect articulation to deliver on this figure, you're really not going to get it. Nowhere here, and very limited up here. As for her arms hinge outward, and despite the fact that she does have these big giant skulls on her shoulders, you can still almost pull off a 90-degree angle. She also has the socket joints that allow the arms to hinge a little bit more forward and a little bit further back, but not too much there either. The arms rotate all the way around. She does have a swivel at the bicep. It's actually even not on the bicep. If you look at it, the bicep swivel is just at the point where the strap attaches. So like the skull is attached to the arm there. That's where the swivel cut is. She does also have a double hinge on the elbow. Get that arm to straight out again. She has her hand, of course, that swivels all the way around. You can hinge those back and forth. Skipping over the torso because we already looked at that. Legs split out. And because, again, like the skirting is a softer plastic, it allows the legs to move out almost at a full Van Damme splits. You can bring the legs forward. You can bring the legs back. She doesn't have a swivel necessarily anywhere here. This is just all molded plastic. She can, in fact, just have a swivel basically where the leg attaches to the socket. She does also have a double hinge on the knee. I really like also the way that they've put this part of the armor piece just on the knee. So when you move the leg forward, it continues and connects with the rest of the boot. But when you hinge the knee like this, yeah, it looks okay. I will say this, it does look a little sectional. Like you're asking yourself, well, wait a minute, wouldn't that have been part of the boot? But at least I like the fact that it doesn't limit the knee articulation. You can still pull that back and forth fine and good. And, you know, again, when you have those legs straight, it just looks like it's part of the boot. Then for the feet move back and forth. You can hinge them back and forth slightly this way. And she does also have toe articulation with some much appreciated peg holes on the undersides of her feet. Wonder Woman of the three, the Trinity that we've looked at, is my favorite of the figures. I know I was a big fan of the Batman Dark Knight's death metal. Let's just get our feet to straighten out a little bit here. Straighten our knees. There we go. Yeah, I know I really ripped on, unfortunately, Batman, and it's more so just the fact that we did get the figure again. I mean, if we had gotten the figure maybe a year or two ago, that would be a different story altogether, and maybe if they had just improved upon the mold and painted it ever so slightly different, but they didn't. They didn't do that. So the resulting in that is sort of we get a rehashing of the same Batman. You know, for all the talking I'm doing, I should probably just bring these back in. Bring in the Trinity so you can see them again. And bring in the Superman. There we go. My favorite, though, of the three is the Wonder Woman. She's got a great-looking sculpt, pretty-looking face, and even though she suffers the same problem as not enough paint applications like the other figures have, I think somehow the paint still works well because probably there's just a lot more of it going on the figure. She doesn't have the bright colors that Superman has, for example, the more vibrancy that he has in his ripped sleeve shirt. 90s Superman over there. But I think she is definitely my favorite figure of the 4 figures that we've looked at. And then right up after that would be the Robin King. Those would be my 2 favorites from the Dark Father wave. With McFarlane Toys, the new trend seems to be release a DC Multiverse figure, and then a month or so later, re-release that figure with either a different head sculpt, or in some cases, just a different color of plastic or paint. We've already seen that there's going to be a white repaint of the Injustice 2 Flash, which I can tell you is a hard pass. I have no interest in picking up the Injustice 2 Flash again. But we are apparently going to get another Dark Knight's Death Metal Wonder Woman, which is basically the same mold as what we're seeing here in Final Looks and what we saw over the course of this review, but it's going to be in a different color. I want to say it's in an orange and blue color, and I may have to go back and just double check that because my memory isn't as good as it used to be. But it's basically going to be the same Wonder Woman as what we're getting right here. For me, I'm more the purist, and I like the colorings of the red and the blue, the more traditional Wonder Woman colors. But I could easily see myself probably still picking up that figure, if not even just the review, but just the fact I like this sculpt on the figure anyways, and I don't know, maybe I just might find myself getting different versions of these as they're coming out. There's got to be some stopping point, though. And the earlier waves of the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse figures, they weren't really doing this. They were releasing a single figure mold. But I guess as the popularity and, as more people are getting onto this line, I guess there's the freedom for them to re-release the same figures over and over again. Some have been a little bit more successful than others, but like I said, a white version of Injustice 2 Flash, that's a hard pass. Do like the look of Wonder Woman here. Here in Final Looks, I talked about my struggles of actually getting her to pose properly. Primarily, it's in the torso, and it's primarily in the head. I was able to force the head just a little bit more, so I've got the head slightly more turned than just having a look straight forward, and that seems to be a look that I'm liking right now. That's probably going to be the way I'm going to display her. But then as for the torso piece, yeah, it's just really overlaid softer plastic over top of an existing torso. I think it was more so they can get mileage out of an already produced mold, and it really had nothing to do with hiding the articulation on the figure, because she almost doesn't have any articulation in the torso. It's softer plastic, sure, fine and good, and you almost feel like you can bend her, give her an ab crunch, but it's not successful. I think if anything, like I said, it's just a soft overlay plastic piece so they can use the mold that's underneath it. Despite her shortcomings when it comes to articulation, it's a beautiful looking Wonder Woman, and easily my favorite Wonder Woman that they've released so far. Will I get myself the repaint of this one? Time will tell, but for the time being, I'm more than happy to display the OG version of her with the Chainsaw of Truth in her hand. FYI, McFarlane Toys, if you could produce a 1-to-1, doesn't have to work, it doesn't actually have to dispense truth, but at the very least, a 1-to-1 scale of the Chainsaw of Truth, you'd have a customer right here. I would pick that one up in a heartbeat. Looks like something that Kratos would be wielding. What do you guys think of Dark Knight's Death Metal Wonder Woman? Let me know down below in the comments section whether you picked the figure up for yourself or just based on this review. Of course, we've finished now 4 figures. We looked at the Robin King, the Superman, the Batman, and now the Wonder Woman. We will now also be looking at the Dark Father Build-A-Figure. His review will be coming up in the next video, so make sure you keep your peepers peeled to that. Of course, the key to making sure that you're not missing out on anything that's popping up onto this channel is doing 2 simple things. One of which, the main one being, I guess, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. And while you've got then a little bit of free time after that, make sure you turn on the bell notifications so that you're getting those friendly notifications of when exactly new videos will be popping up. Like I said, we will be looking at the look at the Build-A-Figure Dark Father. His review will be coming up. But we're going to look at a whole bunch of other things coming up as well, including more DC Multiverse figure reviews. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.